Commander Jake Mitchell stood on the bridge of the USS Independence, staring at the display screen that had just changed everything. The signal was clear, unmistakable, and completely alien. After 300 years of scanning the stars and finding nothing but silence, humanity had finally received its first message from another intelligent species. "Amy, run that through the computer again," Jake said to Lieutenant Amy Foster at the communication station. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls, her face pale with excitement and fear. "Sir, the signal is definitely artificial, the DA. Pattern repeats every 47 seconds and it's coming from the edge of our solar system," Amy reported. "The computer says it's some kind of mathematical sequence, but there's more to it. I think they're trying to show us they understand our number systems." Dr. Ben Rodriguez, the ship's science officer, leaned over Amy's shoulder to study the readouts. He was a quiet man who rarely showed emotion, but today his hands shook as he worked. "Commander, this isn't random. Look at these patterns. They're showing us they know about prime numbers, then moving to more complex mathematics. This is definitely a first contact protocol." Jake felt his heart racing. As commander of humanity's most advanced exploration ship, he had always known this moment might come. But knowing something and living it were very different things. "Get me Captain Harper on the secure channel. Priority Alpha." The main screen flickered and Captain Lisa Harper appeared. She was aboard the command ship 3 million kilometers away, leading the small fleet that had been exploring the outer system. Her weathered face showed the same mix of excitement and concern that Jake felt. "Commander Mitchell, tell me you have good news and bad news," Harper said without greeting. "The good news is we're not alone in the universe, Captain. The bad news is we're not alone in the universe," Jake replied. "We have confirmed alien contact. The signal is sophisticated and appears to be a peaceful greeting." Harper nodded slowly. "I've been waiting for this call my whole career, but I still don't feel ready." "What's your assessment of their intentions?" Ben stepped forward. "Captain, the mathematical progression they're using suggests a peaceful approach. They're starting with basic concepts and building complexity, like teaching a child. If they wanted to harm us, they probably wouldn't bother with education." "Probably," Harper repeated. "That word doesn't give me much comfort when we're talking about the future of humanity. Commander, I want you to continue monitoring that signal. Don't respond yet. I'm calling Earth Command." The connection ended, leaving Jake alone with his crew in the most important decision in human history. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the occasional beep from Amy's station as more signals arrived. "Sir," Amy said after several minutes, "the signal is getting stronger. I think they're moving closer to us. And there's something else. The message is changing. They're adding new elements." Jake moved to her station and watched the display. The mathematical sequences were becoming more complex, showing concepts that pushed the limits of human understanding. But there was something else now, something that looked almost like pictures. "Ben, can you make sense of this?" The science officer studied the patterns for several minutes. "Commander, I think they're showing us star maps. Look at these coordinates. If I'm reading this correctly, they're telling us where they come from. It's a system about 12 light years from here." 12 light years, Jake repeated. "That's practically next door in galactic terms. They've been watching us." "There's more, sir," Amy said, her voice rising with excitement. "I'm getting audio, now. It sounds like they're trying to speak our language." The speakers crackled with static. Then a voice emerged. It was clearly artificial, computer-generated. But the words were unmistakably English. "Greetings, humans of Earth. We are the Zalathi Confederation. We come in peace and friendship." The bridge fell silent. Jake felt the weight of history pressing down on him. Every person on Earth would remember this moment forever. "Record everything," he ordered quietly. The alien voice continued. "We have watched your species grow and develop. You have reached the stars as we did long ago. We wish to meet with you and share knowledge. We represent 12 species who have joined together in peace and exploration." Jake's mind raced. 12 species. That meant humanity wasn't just meeting one alien race. but an entire confederation of them. The implications were staggering. "We will wait at the edge of your system for your response," the voice said. "We hope you will agree to meet with us. We have much to show you and much to learn from you." The signal faded to a gentle hum, then stopped entirely. The bridge remained, quiet for a long moment. "Amy, did you get all of that?" Jake asked. "Every word, sir. It's all recorded and backed up." "Ben, analysis?" The science officer rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "They claim to represent a confederation of 12 species. That suggests a level of political and social development that took humanity thousands of years to achieve. They mentioned watching us, which means they have surveillance technology we can't detect, and they learned our language well enough to communicate clearly. What does that tell you about their capabilities?" "That they're far more advanced than us, Commander, probably by centuries or millennia." Jake nodded grimly. That was what he had feared. First contact with a superior alien civilization could go many ways, and most of them ended badly for the less advanced species. The communication system chimed, and Captain Harper's image appeared again. This time she looked tired and stressed. "Commander, I've spoken with Earth Command. The President has been briefed and the Security Council is meeting in emergency session. Our orders are to proceed with extreme caution." "What does that mean exactly?" "It means we're going to meet with them, but we're not going alone. Earth is sending reinforcements. The USS Discovery under Captain Ryan Blake will join us for scientific support. The USS Guardian with Captain Maria Santos will provide escort." Jake felt a mix of relief and worry. More ships meant more firepower if things went badly, but it also meant more people at risk if the aliens had hostile intentions. "Captain, what's our diplomatic position?" Harper's expression grew serious. "We're to approach this as equals, not as supplicants. Humanity has survived and thrived through intelligence, adaptability, and strength. We won't bow down to anyone, no matter how advanced they claim to be." "Understood, Captain. Jake, I want you to prepare your crew for anything. This could be the beginning of a golden age for humanity, or it could be the start of our darkest hour. Either way, we need to be ready." The screen went dark, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts and his crew. He looked around the bridge at the faces of the men and women who would be part of humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. They looked scared but determined. "All right, people," Jake said, his voice steady despite the churning in his stomach. "We've got work to do. Amy, prepare a response message. Keep it simple and diplomatic. Ben, I want a full analysis of everything. We've learned about these aliens. Everyone else, run diagnostics on all systems. If we're going to represent humanity to the galaxy, we're going to do it right." As his crew jumped into action, Jake stared out at the stars and wondered what waited for them in the darkness. The aliens claimed to come in peace, but Jake had studied enough history to know that advanced civilizations didn't always have the best interests of primitive ones at heart. Still, this was the moment humanity had been preparing for since they first looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. Now they had their answer, and there was no turning back. The alien fleet arrived like nothing Jake Mitchell had ever imagined. One moment the space beyond Jupiter was empty, and the next it was filled with 12 massive ships that seemed to bend light around them. Each vessel was completely different from the others, as if designed by entirely different species with their own ideas about beauty and function. "My God," Amy whispered from her station, her voice barely audible above the hum of the bridge equipment. "Commander, you need to see this." Jake stood at the main viewing screen, unable to believe what his eyes were showing him. The largest ship looked like it had been grown rather than built, its surface flowing in organic curves that shifted and changed as he watched. Another vessel appeared to be made entirely of crystal, catching and reflecting light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. A third ship seemed to phase in and out of visibility, as if it existed in several dimensions at once. "Ben, are you getting readings on these things?" Jake asked, not taking his eyes off the display. Dr. Rodriguez was hunched over his instruments, his face pale with amazement. "Commander, these ships are impossible. The largest one is over 1 kilometer long, but my sensors say it has almost no mass. That crystal ship is generating its own gravity field, and that one that keeps flickering? I think it's moving through time differently than we are." Captain Harper's voice crackled over the communication system. All ships maintain position and ready all sensors. This is what we came here for. The alien ships arranged themselves in a perfect formation, creating a circle with the human vessels at the center. It was clearly a display of power, but also an invitation. The message was clear. We are advanced beyond your understanding, but we come in peace. A new voice filled the bridge, different from the computer-generated speech they had heard before. This one was musical, with harmonics that seemed to resonate in Jake's bones. Greetings, representatives of humanity. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zalathi Confederation. We welcome you to this historic meeting. This is Captain Lisa Harper of the Earth Fleet. We thank you for this opportunity to meet. We would be honored if you would join us aboard our flagship. We have prepared a cultural exchange that we hope will help our species understand each other. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Boarding an alien ship was exactly the kind of risk that could end badly for the human race, but it was also the opportunity of a lifetime. We accept your invitation, Captain Harper replied after a brief pause. We will send a delegation aboard your vessel. Within an hour, Jake found himself in a shuttle heading toward the alien flagship, accompanied by Captain Harper, Dr. Rodriguez, Dr. Emma Wright, the xenobiologist, and Lieutenant Colonel Sam Carter, their military observer. The alien ship grew larger as they approached, its surface shifting and changing like a living thing. I've never seen anything like this, Dr. Wright said, pressing her face to the shuttle window. The hull appears to be organic, but it's clearly artificial. How do they grow metal? The shuttle was guided into a docking bay that formed around them as they entered, the ship's hull flowing like liquid to create a perfect seal. The bay filled with atmosphere, and their sensors confirmed it was breathable for humans. They were met by Admiral Kethvar himself, a tall, graceful being with 4 arms and skin that seemed to contain its own light. His face was almost human, but his eyes were pools of silver that reflected light in impossible ways. Welcome aboard the Eternal Harmony, Kethvar said, his voice now coming from the being himself rather than through translators. Please follow me, we have much to show you. The interior of the ship was as amazing as the outside. The corridors seemed to grow and shift as they walked, adjusting their size and shape to accommodate the group. The walls were covered with what looked like living art, patterns and colors that moved and danced in response to their presence. How is this possible? Dr. Wright asked, running her hand along a wall that rippled at her touch. Matter manipulation, Kethvar replied casually. We learned to control the basic building blocks of reality several thousand years ago. It makes construction much more efficient. They entered a vast chamber where representatives of the 12 species waited. Jake tried to take in all the different forms of life. Beings of pure energy contained in crystalline shells, creatures that looked like walking trees, others that seemed to be made of liquid metal. Each was more alien and wonderful than the last. A creature that looked like a jellyfish made of light floated toward them. I am Coordinator Velnash of the Vorthak Collective. We are pleased to meet another species capable of rational thought. This is incredible, Dr. Rodriguez whispered to Jake. Do you realize what we're seeing? 12 different evolutionary paths, 12 different solutions to the problem of intelligence. The aliens began their presentation, showing off technologies that seemed like magic to human eyes. They demonstrated devices that could turn basic elements into complex materials instantly. They showed machines that could manipulate gravity, making objects float or fall at will. One alien casually reached into what looked like empty air and pulled out a flower that hadn't existed moments before. We have been exploring the galaxy for over 3,000 years, explained another alien, this one resembling a giant insect, with wings that reflected rainbow patterns. We have brought 47 species into our confederation, sharing knowledge and technology for the benefit of all. Lieutenant Colonel Carter watched everything with the sharp eyes of a soldier. Jake noticed that while the others were amazed by the displays, Carter seemed to be analyzing the aliens' capabilities from a military perspective. Your species shows great promise, Kethvar said, addressing the human delegation directly. You have achieved faster-than-light travel, developed complex societies, and shown the wisdom to approach this meeting with both caution and openness. We believe humanity would make an excellent addition to our confederation. What would that mean for us? Captain Harper asked. You would have access to our accumulated knowledge, Velnash replied, its voice like singing crystal. Technologies that would advance your civilization by thousands of years. Medicine that could eliminate disease and extend life indefinitely. Energy systems that could power your entire world without depleting resources. The offer was everything humanity had ever dreamed of. Jake could see the amazement on his companions' faces as they realized what was being offered, but something about the aliens' manner bothered him. They seemed to expect the humans to be overwhelmed with gratitude, to immediately accept whatever terms were offered. Of course, Kethvar continued, new members of the Confederation typically serve a period of guidance under more experienced species, usually a few centuries while you adapt to your new technologies and responsibilities. There it was, the catch. Humanity would get all this wonderful technology, but only after accepting a subordinate position in someone else's empire. That's very generous, Captain Harper said carefully. We would need to discuss this with our government, of course. Naturally, Kethvar agreed. But first, we would like to complete our cultural exchange. We have shown you our capabilities. Perhaps you would honor us by showing us yours? Jake saw something flicker in the Admiral's silver eyes. It might have been curiosity, but it looked more like condescension. The aliens clearly expected to see primitive rockets and basic computers, technology that would confirm humanity's need for their guidance. We would be happy to reciprocate, Captain Harper replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Perhaps you would like to tour our ships? That would be delightful, Kethvar said, though his tone suggested he was humoring children who wanted to show off their toys. As they prepared to return to the human ships, Jake caught Carter's eye. The military officer gave him a nearly invisible nod, and Jake knew they were thinking the same thing. The aliens were impressive, but they were also arrogant. They had already decided that humanity was just another primitive species in need of uplift. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The human delegation returned to their shuttle, leaving the aliens with promises of their own demonstration. As they flew back to the USS Independence, Jake looked at his companions and saw the same mix of wonder and concern on their faces. What do you think? Captain Harper asked quietly. I think, Lieutenant Colonel Carter said slowly, that they're not quite as peaceful as they claim to be, and I think they're in for a surprise when they see what humanity calls a starship. Admiral Kethvar floated through the docking bay of the USS Independence with obvious boredom written across his alien features. The other alien representatives followed behind him, their various forms of communication creating a low hum of what Jake was beginning to recognize as polite but dismissive chatter. Your construction techniques are quite robust, Velnash commented, its crystalline form reflecting the harsh metal surfaces of the human ship. Very practical for a developing species. Jake bit back his first response and smiled instead. Thank you. We've learned to build things that last. Captain Harper led the group through the ship's corridors, which suddenly seemed cramped and primitive, compared to the flowing organic passages of the alien flagship. The aliens examined everything with the air of adults humoring children who wanted to show off their crayon drawings. This is our main engineering section, Chief Engineer Tony Parker announced as they entered a room filled with humming machinery and blinking lights. Tony was a big man with grease-stained hands who had spent his entire career making human technology work better, faster, and more reliably. Fascinating, said the insect-like alien, whose name was apparently Zixtal. You still use physical components for your computational systems. How quaint. Tony's eye twitched slightly, but he continued his explanation. These systems control our faster-than-light drive, environmental systems, and navigation. Everything's built with multiple backups and manual overrides. Manual overrides? Kethvar asked, clearly puzzled. Why would you want to manually control such systems? Because sometimes computers fail, Tony replied simply. When they do, humans need to be able to take control. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, his tablet in hand. Admiral, our approach to technology might seem primitive, But it's based on hard-won experience. We've learned that the more complex a system becomes, the more ways it can fail. But surely, Velnash interjected, it's better to create systems that cannot fail than to plan for failure. With respect, Rodriguez said carefully, we've found that everything fails eventually. The question is whether you're ready when it happens. Jake watched the aliens' reactions. They seemed genuinely confused by the human philosophy of building, redundancy and planning for worst-case scenarios. It was as if the concept of failure was foreign to them. Perhaps we could show you our defensive systems, Lieutenant Colonel Carter suggested, his voice casual but his eyes sharp. Defensive systems? Kethavar repeated. You mean for protection against asteroids and space debris? Among other things, Carter replied with a thin smile. They moved through the ship to what humans called the weapons bay, though Carter introduced it as the Tactical Systems Center. The room was filled with displays showing target acquisition, systems, missile guidance computers, and firing control mechanisms. These are interesting, Zixtal buzzed, examining a display showing the ship's defensive grid. You have quite elaborate systems for destroying space debris. Oh, these aren't for debris, Carter said pleasantly. These are for destroying other ships. The casual statement hit the alien delegation like a physical blow. Several of them, actually, stepped backward, their various forms of communication creating what sounded like shocked gasps and alarmed whistles. Other ships? Kethavar asked slowly. Why would you want to destroy other ships? Carter looked genuinely surprised by the question. In case they're trying to destroy us, of course. It's basic military doctrine. Be prepared to fight or you'll definitely lose when someone decides to attack you. But who would attack you? Velnash asked, its crystalline form flickering with what Jake was learning to recognize as distress. Anyone who wants what we have, Carter replied matter-of-factly. Resources, territory, strategic advantage. History teaches us that someone is always willing to take by force what they can't get through trade. Dr. Emma Wright, who had been quietly observing the aliens' reaction, stepped forward. May I ask how your confederation handles aggressive species? Surely in 3,000 years of exploration, you must have encountered some civilizations that weren't interested in peaceful cooperation? The aliens exchanged what Jake was beginning to recognize as uncomfortable glances. Kethavar finally answered, We avoid such species. The galaxy is vast, and there is room for all approaches to civilization. You avoid them? Carter asked, his voice sharpening slightly. What happens when avoidance isn't an option? What if they come looking for you? That has never happened, Kethavar said quickly. Our diplomatic approach has always proven successful. Lucky. You, Carter muttered, then spoke louder. Would you like to see our Marine complement? Our soldiers. Soldiers, Zixtal buzzed nervously. You mean beings trained specifically for violence? Beings trained to protect our ship and our people, Carter corrected. Violence is just one of their tools. They moved to the ship's training area, where Sergeant Major Kate Phillips was putting a squad of Marines through combat drills. The aliens watched in horrified fascination as humans practiced hand-to-hand combat, weapons training, and tactical maneuvers. This is Sergeant Major Phillips, Carter announced. Kate, would you mind explaining your training philosophy to our guests? Kate was a compact woman with scars on her hands and the kind of steady gaze that made smart people think twice about causing trouble. Happy to, sir. She turned to the aliens. We train for every possible combat scenario because in a real fight you don't get to choose the conditions. You adapt or you die. But surely, Velnash said weakly, such training is unnecessary in a peaceful galaxy? Kate's laugh was not unkind, but it was definitely not reassuring. Ma'am, with respect, I've never seen a peaceful anything. Peace is what happens when everyone with weapons agrees not to use them. The moment someone changes their mind, you better be ready. One of the aliens, a being that looked like a walking tree with silver bark, spoke for the first time. Your species seems remarkably focused on conflict and violence. This is disturbing. Captain Harper finally spoke up. With respect, Ambassador, our focus isn't on violence. It's on survival. Every human ship, even our research vessels, is designed with the understanding that the universe can be a dangerous place. Research vessels? Kethavar asked. This ship is for research? Among other things, Harper confirmed. The USS Independence is an exploration ship. We explore. We research. We make contact with new species, and if necessary, we fight. We've learned not to separate these functions because the universe doesn't care about our categories. Tony Parker stepped forward again. Would you like to see how we manufacture things? Our approach might interest you. As they moved to the manufacturing section, Jake noticed that the aliens were walking closer together now, as if seeking comfort in each other's presence. Their casual confidence from the beginning of the tour had evaporated. This is our matter compiler, Tony explained, showing them a machine that could build complex components from raw materials. It's not as elegant as your matter manipulation, but it has one advantage. It keeps working even when the power goes out. How? Velnash asked. Because we can run it manually if we have to, Tony replied, patting a set of manual controls. Everything we build has a manual backup. Everything. Dr. Rodriguez pulled up a holographic display showing human manufacturing principles. Our entire industrial philosophy is based on what we call graceful degradation. When systems fail, they fail in ways that humans can understand and repair. But why would systems fail? The tree-like alien asked. Proper systems should be perfect. Nothing is perfect, Rodriguez replied simply. That's the first rule of human engineering. The second rule is always have a backup plan for when the first rule proves itself right. The tour continued for another hour, with the aliens growing increasingly quiet as they realized that every aspect of human technology was designed with conflict in mind. Even their medical systems were built to function during combat. Their communications could operate through jamming. Their computers were hardened against attack. As they prepared to return to their ships, Kethavar turned to Captain Harper with what Jake was beginning to recognize as carefully controlled alarm. Captain, your species seems remarkably prepared for war. Harper smiled, and for the first time since the aliens had arrived, it reached her eyes. Admiral, we're prepared for anything. That's what makes us human. As the alien delegation departed, Jake caught Carter's eye again. The military officer was grinning like a man who had just played a winning hand in a very high-stakes game. Think they got the message? Jake asked quietly. Oh, they got it, Carter replied. The question is, what are they going to do about it? Admiral Kethavar stood in the shuttle bay of his flagship, his silver eyes reflecting patterns of confusion and growing alarm. The other alien delegates clustered around him, their various forms of communication creating a nervous buzz that filled the air with tension. Admiral, Velnash said, its crystalline form flickering with distress, the humans are not what we expected. Their approach to technology is fundamentally different from ours. Different how? Kethavar asked, though he already knew the answer. They build everything as if they expect to be attacked. Zixtal buzzed anxiously. Even their research ships are weapons platforms. This is deeply disturbing. Kethavar had been thinking the same thing during the entire tour of the human vessel. In 3,000 years of bringing species into the Confederation, they had never encountered anything like humanity. Most civilizations were grateful for the chance to join a peaceful galactic community. They saw the Confederation's advanced technology and immediately understood the benefits of cooperation over conflict. But these humans seemed to view everything through the lens of potential warfare. They planned for failure, prepared for attack, and built their entire civilization around the assumption that conflict was inevitable. It was a mindset that Kethavar found both fascinating and terrifying. Perhaps we should ask them directly about their military capabilities, suggested the tree-like being whose name was Threndar, better to understand what we're dealing with. Before Kethavar could respond, his communication system activated. Captain Harper's voice filled the shuttle bay with calm professionalism that somehow made Kethavar even more nervous. Admiral Kethavar, we appreciate your interest in our defensive systems. In the spirit of complete transparency, we'd like to invite you to observe a demonstration of human military doctrine. Kethavar felt his 4 hearts skip several beats. A demonstration? Nothing threatening, Harper continued. We simply believe that honest communication is the foundation of any good relationship. You've shown us your capabilities, and we'd like to show you ours. The Admiral looked around at his fellow delegates, seeing his own anxiety reflected in their various alien features. But curiosity was stronger than fear, and the Confederation had always prided itself on peaceful knowledge-gathering. We would be honored to observe, Kethvar replied, hoping his voice sounded steadier than he felt. Excellent. Please prepare your sensors. The demonstration will begin in 10 minutes. Kethvar hurried to the Eternal Harmony sensor array, where his technicians were already working to calibrate their instruments. The Confederation's technology could detect ships across vast distances, analyze their composition, and evaluate their capabilities with incredible precision. Admiral, his chief sensor operator reported, I'm reading the 3 human ships clearly, the USS Independence, USS Discovery, and USS Guardian. All appear to be similar in design and capability. Only 3 ships, Velnash said with obvious relief. Whatever they plan to show us, it cannot be too impressive. That was when space around them suddenly filled with ships. 12 massive human vessels materialized from apparent nothingness, surrounding the alien formation in a perfect tactical arrangement. These were not the graceful exploration ships they had toured. These were pure instruments of war, angular and brutal in their efficiency, bristling with weapon systems that made Kethvar's sensors scream warnings. My God, breathed his sensor operator, his voice barely a whisper. Admiral, these readings, these ships are impossible. Report, Kethvar ordered, his voice cracking slightly. Sir, each of these vessels carries enough firepower to destroy a planet. Their armor is denser than anything in our database, and their weapons... Admiral, some of these weapon signatures don't match anything in our records. I think they're using technologies we've never seen before. Captain Alex Morgan's voice came over the communication system from the largest of the new arrivals, a ship that looked like it had been designed by someone who understood that sometimes you needed to break things very efficiently. Admiral Kethvar, welcome to the USS Vengeance and her battle group. I'm Captain Morgan, and I'd like to explain a few things about human military philosophy. Kethvar tried to speak but found his voice wouldn't work properly. Finally, he managed. Captain Morgan, these vessels are... impressive. Thank you. The Vengeance is what we call a Dreadnought-class battleship. She's designed for one purpose, ending conflicts as quickly and decisively as possible. Her sister ships represent different aspects of human military doctrine. Dr. Lisa Chen's voice joined the conversation from another vessel. Admiral, I'm Dr. Chen, weapons specialist aboard the USS Retribution. Perhaps you'd like to understand the philosophy behind our defensive systems? Yes, that would be educational, Kethvar replied weakly. Humans learned a long time ago that the best way to prevent war is to make the cost of starting one too high to accept. We call this doctrine overwhelming deterrence. The idea is simple. If you attack us, we will destroy you so completely that the attempt becomes pointless. Commander Steve Baker's voice came from a third ship. This is Commander Baker aboard the USS Destroyer. Our role in human military doctrine is rapid response. We can travel anywhere in human space within hours and bring enough firepower to handle any threat. Any threat? Zixtal asked nervously. Any threat, Baker confirmed. Our weapon systems are designed to adapt to whatever we're fighting. Energy. Shields, we have kinetic weapons that ignore them. Heavy armor. We have plasma weapons that cut through anything. Long-range fighters. We have missiles that can chase targets across star systems. Kethvar looked at his sensor readings again, hoping they would make more sense the second time. They didn't. Captain Morgan, if I may ask, how many ships like these does humanity possess? There was a pause that seemed to last forever. Then Morgan replied, Admiral, the ships you're seeing represent about 2% of human military capability. We have battle fleets stationed throughout human space, defense platforms around every major world, and mobile strike forces that can respond to threats anywhere in our territory. 2%? Velnash whispered, its crystalline form flickering, so rapidly it looked like it might shatter. That's correct, came a new voice. This is Admiral Patricia Stone, commanding the 3rd Fleet from the USS Invincible. Gentlemen, what you're seeing here is a single patrol group. Our main battle fleets are somewhat larger. Kethavar's legs gave out, and he sank into his command chair. In 3,000 years of galactic exploration, the Confederation had never encountered anything like this. Most species they met had barely figured out how to leave their home systems. Even the more advanced ones had small fleets designed for exploration and trade. But humanity had turned warfare into a science. Every ship, every weapon, every tactical doctrine was designed around the assumption that someone, somewhere, was planning to destroy them, and they had built their entire military around being ready for that threat. Admiral, Dr. Chen continued, I should mention that everything you're seeing represents what we consider conventional weapons. Our strategic deterrent systems are considerably more powerful. Strategic deterrent systems? Kethavar asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Planet killer weapons, Admiral. We have the capability to destroy entire worlds, if necessary. It's a capability we pray we never have to use, but history has taught us that hope is not a strategy. Commander Jake Mitchell's voice joined the conversation from the USS Independence. Admiral, I want to be clear about something. Humans don't want to fight. We'd much rather trade, explore, and learn. But we've learned through bitter experience that the universe doesn't always give you that choice. What do you mean? Threndar asked, his bark-like skin shifting to darker colors. We mean that on our world, we spent thousands of years fighting each other, Mitchell replied. We learned about war the hard way, through blood and pain and loss. We know what happens when someone with superior weapons meets someone who isn't prepared to fight back. Captain Harper's voice cut through the discussion with calm authority. Admiral Kethavar, we're not showing you this to threaten you. We're showing you this because we believe in honest communication. You've offered to bring humanity into your confederation as junior partners. We want you to understand that humanity doesn't do junior partner. What are you saying? Kethavar asked. We're saying that any relationship between our species needs to be between equals, Harper replied. We're happy to trade, to share knowledge, to explore the galaxy together. But we won't be anyone's subordinates, no matter how advanced their technology might be. The communication fell silent for a long moment. Kethavar looked around at his fellow delegates and saw the same realization dawning on all their faces. They weren't dealing with another primitive species grateful for uplift. They were dealing with a civilization that had weaponized everything, including diplomacy. And somehow that was both the most terrifying and most hopeful thing that had happened to the Confederation in 3,000 years. Admiral Kethavar sat in his command chair for a long time after the communication ended, staring at the display showing 15 human warships arranged around his peaceful exploration fleet. His silver eyes reflected the tactical patterns on his screens, and for the first time in his long life he felt truly afraid. Admiral, Velnash said quietly, its crystalline form barely flickering. What do we do now? Before Kethavar could answer, his communication system activated again. Captain Harper's voice filled the bridge, but this time her tone was different. Less formal, more personal. Admiral, I think we need to talk. Really talk. Would you be willing to meet aboard a neutral vessel? The USS Discovery is a pure research ship with minimal weapons. Perhaps we could have an honest conversation there. Kethavar looked around at his fellow delegates. They all looked as shaken as he felt, but he also saw something else in their expressions. Curiosity. Despite their fear, they wanted to understand. These humans who had turned everything the Confederation thought they knew about civilization upside down. Yes, Captain Harper. I think that would be wise. An hour later, Kethavar found himself in the conference room of the USS Discovery, sitting across a table from Captain Harper, Commander Mitchell, Dr. Wright, and Lieutenant Colonel Carter. The room was simple and functional, with no displays of advanced technology or artistic flourishes. It was purely human in its straightforward approach to getting things done. Admiral, Captain Harper began, I want to start by apologizing if our demonstration upset you. That wasn't our intention. Then, what was your intention? Kethavar asked. Honesty, Harper replied simply. You offered to bring humanity into your confederation. We wanted you to understand exactly what you were inviting in. Dr. Wright leaned forward, her expression serious but not unfriendly. "Admiral, can I ask you something? In 3,000 years of expansion, have you ever encountered a species that refused to join your confederation?" Kethavar considered the question carefully. "No. All species we have contacted have been eager to benefit from our advanced technology and peaceful approach to galactic civilization. And have you ever encountered a species that was more militarily advanced than you are?" "No," Kethavar admitted. "Most species we meet are just beginning to explore space. They have basic rockets and simple computers." Commander Mitchell spoke. "Admiral, I think that's the problem. You've been lucky. You've explored the peaceful parts of the galaxy and met young civilizations that haven't had time to develop serious military capabilities." "What do you mean?" Lieutenant Colonel Carter pulled up a holographic display showing a map of local space. "Admiral, your confederation has been expanding in this direction for 3,000 years, right? Always finding new species to uplift and guide?" "Yes, that's correct." "Look at the pattern," Carter said, highlighting the Confederation's expansion route. "You've been moving away from the galactic core, exploring the outer rim where young civilizations develop. You've been unconsciously avoiding the older, more developed regions of space." Kethavar stared at the map, seeing the pattern for the first time. The Confederation had indeed been expanding outward, always finding younger species, always being the most advanced civilization in any encounter. "But that would mean," he began, then stopped as the implications hit him. "That would mean there are older civilizations in the galactic core that you've never met," Harper finished. "Civilizations that might not be as interested in peaceful cooperation as the ones you're used to dealing with." Dr. Wright activated another display. "Admiral, we've been monitoring deep space communications for centuries. There are signals coming from the galactic core that suggest large-scale conflicts, military movements, something that looks suspiciously like empire building on a massive scale." "That's impossible," Velnash protested, its crystalline form flickering with distress. "Civilized species don't engage in large-scale warfare." "With respect," Carter said dryly, "humans engaged in large-scale warfare for thousands of years. It's how we learned to be good at it." Kethavar felt his understanding of the galaxy shifting beneath him like unstable ground. "Are you saying that there are hostile civilizations in the core regions?" "We're saying there are civilizations that might not share your peaceful philosophy," Harper replied. "And if they ever decide to expand outward, your confederation might need friends who know how to fight." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Kethavar looked around the table at the human faces and realized that everything had changed. These weren't primitive beings in need of guidance. They were potential allies who brought capabilities the Confederation desperately needed. "What are you proposing?" he asked finally. Harper smiled, and this time it was warm and genuine. "A partnership, real partnership between equals. You have technology that could advance human civilization by centuries. We have military expertise that could protect your confederation from threats you haven't had to face yet. But," Dr. Wright added, "it has to be a partnership of equals. We won't accept a subordinate position, no matter how advanced your technology is." Kethavar considered this carefully. The idea of treating a newly contacted species as an equal was completely foreign to Confederation doctrine. But then again, nothing about humanity fit Confederation expectations. What would such a partnership look like? Commander Mitchell leaned forward. "Technology sharing but voluntary, cultural exchange but respectful, military cooperation when needed but only when both sides agree it's necessary. And," Carter added with a slight grin, "if anyone from the galactic core decides to cause trouble, they'll have to deal with both Confederation science and human military doctrine." Kethavar found himself thinking about some of the signals his people had detected from the core regions. Massive energy signatures that suggested weapons testing, fleet movements that indicated military buildups. The Confederation had always assumed these were natural phenomena or the activities of primitive species fighting among themselves. But what if they weren't? "There is something else," Kethavar said slowly. "We have detected activities in the core regions that we didn't fully understand. Large energy signatures, organized movement patterns. We assumed they were natural phenomena. They're not natural, Carter said grimly. We've been analyzing those same signals. Someone out there is building a military force that makes our demonstration today look like a training exercise. How can you be sure? Dr. Wright activated another display showing spectral analysis data. Because we know what weapons testing looks like, Admiral. We've done plenty of it ourselves. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Kethavar realized that the Confederation's 3,000 years of peaceful expansion might be coming to an end. The galaxy was bigger and more dangerous than they had ever imagined. If we were to agree to this partnership, he said carefully, what would be the first steps? Cultural exchange, Harper replied immediately. Real exchange, not one side teaching the other. We want to learn from you, and we want you to learn from us. Scientific cooperation, Dr. Wright added. Joint research projects that benefit both species. And military consultation, Carter finished. We help you understand the threats you might face, and you help us understand the political landscape of the galaxy. Kethavar looked around at his fellow delegates. He could see the same realization dawning on their faces that he felt in his hearts. The Confederation needed humanity, as much as humanity could benefit from the Confederation. I will need to consult with the full council, he said finally, but I believe this proposal has merit. Take all the time you need, Harper said. But while you're thinking about it, maybe we could start with something small, a joint mission. To investigate those signals from the Galactic Core, you would do that? Admiral, Commander Mitchell said with a smile that reminded Kethavar why humans were both fascinating and slightly terrifying. We've been looking for an excuse to see what's out there anyway. Now we have allies who can help us survive the trip. 3 days later, the first joint Human Confederation expedition set out toward the Galactic Core. The fleet consisted of 5 Confederation science vessels and 3 human warships, a combination that would have been unthinkable a week earlier. As they jumped to hyperspace together, Kethavar reflected on how quickly everything had changed. The Confederation had come to this meeting expecting to add another junior species to their collective. Instead, they had found their first true partners in 3,000 years of expansion, and somewhere in the galactic core, ancient civilizations that had been building their strength in isolation were about to discover that the galaxy had changed. The peaceful Confederation now had very dangerous friends, and humanity had just gained access to technologies that would make them even more formidable than they already were. The universe, Kethavar realized, was about to become a very interesting place.